This is Foundations of English 9 for Thursday and Friday, the 1st and 2nd of October. If you attended our live class on Thursday, then the first part of this video is what we went over together, but I'm providing it on video so that you have it and you can go back to it. And for people who had to miss class, can come back and watch it as well. So also keep in mind this week that you will have ReadWorks and Quill due, so make sure you're keeping up with those and finishing all of the ones you have, and then using the extra time that you have for this class to go back and make up assignments like Activity 13. So everything we talk about in this video is to help you go back and revise that assignment. I would not do this just to go back and review a piece of work that you couldn't fix. We're reviewing it so that you can go back and make changes and improve your grade. It's a 40-point assignment. It is a test grade, which is 60% of your overall grade. So it does matter what you get on this. It does matter that you try hard and that you go back and revise it, especially if you have somewhere in like the 25 to 60% range like most of you do. All right, so let me start by explaining what you're looking at. Down here in the bottom corner is the sentence frame that I gave you for the first sentence. Here on the main screen are 3 student examples. These are real students from my real classes and what they have written. I have not made any changes other than to put in the part that goes in the blank. So whatever goes in a blank here is in red. The part that does not go in the blank is in black. And then up here at the top, it gives you the rubric. This is actually taken directly from Canvas, so yours will look exactly the same as this. So there's a 4, 3, 2, 1, and 0. You only get a 0 if you did not do that sentence. So everything else should be a 4, 3, 2, or a 1. So to start with, let's look at what I was looking for in sentence 1. The writer clearly states the name of the author, the title of the article, when and where the article was published, and demonstrates clear understanding of the topic of Colvin's article. Now those first things are important, but what's really important, what makes the difference between a 2 and a 4 is the clear understanding of the topic of Colvin's article. So if we look through those 3 sentences, you can see right away all 3 of them have the author's name, all 3 of them have the title in quotation marks, all 3 of them say the date it was published, and all 3 of them say where it was published, Fortune Magazine. So let's just look at the last bit. So this first person wrote, is research on how people achieve greatness and continue to improve. So the question is, does that demonstrate a clear understanding of the topic of Colvin's article? Is his article about people achieving greatness and how they are able to continue to improve? And I would say yes. That does a pretty good job of explaining what the article is about. So this sentence here, I would give it a 4. Let's take a look at the second one. Now, if you read this whole one, you might notice something. The central focus of Jeff Colvin's article, What It Takes to Be Great, published Fortune Magazine, October 30th, 2006, is a research on performers who are trying to do their best in their fields and reach greatness. So you might notice that they missed the word published in Fortune Magazine, and they put a research instead of just is research on. Those 2 things are not that big a deal. That doesn't affect what score they get up here. But I wanted to point it out so you know that I'm not looking for every little picky thing to be correct. I am looking for the overall meaning though. So let's look at this overall meaning. Performers who are trying to do their best in their fields and reach greatness. So does that capture Colvin's point in his article? Sort of. This is focusing more on performers, so if I was just reading the sentence, I would think the article was about a bunch of people who were really good at what they do and why they wanted to be great, instead of what ordinary people can do to achieve greatness and continue to improve. So I would say this falls in the 3 range, okay? So 4 for the first one, 3 for the second one. Let's look at the third one. The third one starts off the same as the others and ends with, is research on what makes a person great. So again, I'm going to ask myself, what does the article say? And does that represent what the article says? So research on what makes a person great. This sounds like the article is going to be about just a list of people who are awesome and why they're awesome. And that doesn't really capture the idea. So for me, this is probably a 2, maybe a 3 because it has everything else, but it's going to be in the 2 or 3 range. Typically, if I'm between 2 of them, I will bump you up a point, especially early in the school year. But on a strictly rubric basis, this is probably a 2. Moving into sentence 2. Sentence 2, down here you see the sentence frame. So author's last name notes that the researchers were first curious why, and that led them to study what they studied. So if you look up here at all three of them, we're looking again at the red parts because those are the parts that the person changed or included in their own words. So this rubric says, the writer clearly and accurately explains the question which first motivated the research into what it takes to be great. They include relevant information and exclude unnecessary detail and personal opinion. So let's take a look at this first one. Colvin notes that the researchers were first curious why some people continued to improve for years, and that led them to study Bobby Fischer, Tiger Woods, and Michael Jordan. Now, if you've read the article, which all of you have many times now, you know that those are three people that they studied in order to find out why these people were so much better than everyone else at their field. So chess and golf and basketball. So the first part, some people continued to improve for years. Does that capture what they wanted to study? For me, it does mostly. So it would be more correct to say, curious why some people continued to improve for years while other people didn't get better even with practice. And then the second part led them to study, saying who they studied, great. So I actually would give this a 4, although I think that a stronger answer would include that other part, that why some people continue to improve while other people don't. So let's take a look at the second one. Colvin notes that the researchers were first curious because when they hit life's bumps in the road and conclude that they just aren't gifted and give up, and that led them to study more about Noel Tichy. This one's interesting because if you know the article as well as I do, and as well as I hope you do, you know that this is not someone that they studied in order to learn about greatness. This is one of the researchers. And you'll know that this is actually word for word from the article. Now, I remember talking about with you guys that plagiarism is when you take someone else's words and you use them as your own. So because this person put some of it in quotes, but not all of it, and all of it is someone else's words, this would actually get no credit. That seems really harsh. I would probably give it a 1 just because they did put something there. But it's going to be a 1 because they did not put it in their own words. The reason you're putting it in your own words is so that I understand that you know what it's saying and that you're able to rephrase it so that it shows that you have mastery over it. So this one, again, is going to be in that 1 range. If they put it in their own words and replaced Noel Tichy with some of the people from the first sentence, then that could be a 4 really, really easily. And the third part. I hope when you look at this one, you notice right away that it's missing that second half, and that led them to study. So I already know that it's missing a major component. But let's look at what they have. Colvin notes that the researchers were first curious about what makes some great and others not that much. So, does this explain what the research was about? Yeah, why some people are better than others, but it doesn't talk about specifically what that is. Like this first one that says they continue to improve for years, that's a lot more specific than about what makes someone great and others not much. So, and because it's missing that second part, this is going to fall in the 2 range. All right, sentence 3. Sentence 3, this frame is down here. While many believe that blank, the researchers and blank conclude that greatness blank through deliberate practice. So I know that if I look at the rubric up here, I'm looking for what do people believe about greatness, according to Colvin, and what's Colvin's main argument. Those are the 2 most important things. So let's look at the first one. While many believe that people are naturally talented and born to be great, the researchers in Colvin conclude that greatness can be achieved through deliberate practice, an activity that's intended to improve performance. Now, you can see the quotation marks, which means that that is in the author's words, but she's put it in quotation marks, so we know that that's the author's words. So it is not plagiarism. Now, notice that this one is worth double. So it's still 4, 3, 2, 1, but it's worth double everything. So 8, 6, 4, 2. So first, while many people believe that people are naturally talented and born to be great, that's a perfect summary of what Colvin says people believe about greatness. And then greatness can be achieved through deliberate practice. And then they even add on this extra thing about what deliberate practice is. So this is going to be an 8 or a 4 because it has everything and it even goes an extra step beyond. So let's look at the second one. While many believe that Bobby Fischer, the researchers in Colvin conclude that greatness getting significantly better through deliberate practice. Right away, as you listen to this being read out loud, which is why you should always read your own writing out loud, because often you can hear things that you don't see. When you hear it read out loud, you realize this doesn't sound right. So many believe that Bobby Fischer is a famous, legendary, great chess master. So that doesn't really make sense. We're looking for something more like this. So many believe that. So right away we know that this cannot be anything more than a 2. And then greatness, getting significantly better. So this person just paraphrased the word greatness. Unfortunately, that doesn't make sense in the sentence. So this is going to be in the 1 or maybe the 2 range. So I probably would bump it up to a 2 just because, again, I like giving people credit for where I can. The final one. While many believe that you either got it or you don't, the researchers in Colvin conclude that greatness is achieved through deliberate practice. So what I like about this one is that it's short and to the point, and greatness is achieved, makes it sound active, and I like that. What I don't like as much about it is you either got it or you don't doesn't sound like an argument the author would make. In words like, many people believe that either you're great or you're not, and that's how you were born, would be perfect. So to me, this is a 3. And that's all down to the language used right here in this part. Sentence 4 asks you to identify the 4 features of deliberate practice and to avoid personal opinion and unnecessary detail. The first one, deliberate practice involves consistency, patience, repetition, and dedication. I want to first show you this one here, and then we'll talk about this first one. Deliberate practice is an activity that's intended to improve performance. It reaches for objectives just beyond one's level of competence, provides feedback on results, and involves high levels of repetition. Now, this one right here uses the words that I used in activities 17 and 18. And that's actually okay. I would rather you use my words in this case, especially now that I'm giving you direct permission to use them, than to try and copy them out of the article or to use words like consistency, patience, repetition, and dedication, because those 4 words don't capture everything that is captured here. And so you can see there's a lot more detail in this sentence than there is in this one. And the same thing with the last one. Consistent work, motivation, dedication, and hard work. A lot of those things, again, are similar to what's here, but they're not put into words that are specific enough. So I would say this one, the second one, is a 4. This one is probably a 3 because it isn't as specific. And this final one would have been a 3, but then they add all of which I think are really important. So the rubric says you have to avoid personal opinion, which means I have to knock this down to a 2. In sentence 5, this is probably the one that most of you had the most trouble on. So this one is supposed to give at least one example that Colvin uses to support his argument that people can become great through deliberate practice. And it, again, is supposed to avoid unnecessary detail and personal opinion. So to support his argument, Colvin shares, and then you're supposed to give an example from the story. It can be any of the examples of the people that he studied. I know a lot of you probably would choose Michael Jordan because that's probably the one you're most familiar with. And in fact, this first person does. Says, to support his argument, Colvin shares research on elite performers and the hours of practicing that they do, such as Michael Jordan, who didn't even make his own high school basketball team, but was able to be one of the greatest players of all time. So that establishes, here's the person, here's why he wasn't just born great, because if you were born great, you would make your own high school basketball team. And then it says he became great. That is a 4 answer. That is a perfect answer. The next one, to support his article, Colvin shares their concentration and focus on improving their performance during the lesson. Now right away, this is pretty problematic because Colvin shares their concentration. Whose concentration? Where is that coming from? What's the they in this sentence? And whose focus on improving what performance? And during the lesson, that doesn't make sense with what Colvin is arguing. So this one is going to be in the 1 or 2 range. I probably, again, would give it a 2 just because I like to give more credit where I can. And it does say something like their concentration and focus is important for professional athletes and for people who are great in their field. It just doesn't give the example. It doesn't talk about Tiger Woods or Bobby Fischer or any of the other people that he talks about, Luciano Pavarotti. So again, 1, maybe 2. To support his argument, Colvin shares the scientific fact that most elite performers spend a minimum of 10,000 hours of deliberate practice. Now, what I like about this one is that it does give some evidence towards this, but it doesn't give an example. And this has to be an example. So this one is going to end up being a 2, even though it has really strong detail, it just doesn't have an example of a person from the article. So you can't just make up your own here. It has to be something from the article. There were, I believe, 9 people mentioned in the article that they studied. You can choose any of the 9 and say why they reflect Colvin's argument so well. And finally, this is your last sentence. This one is about what the author is arguing and what the purpose was. So Colvin wrote this for a reason. Why did he write it? What does he want you to do as a result of reading this article? So you were supposed to clearly and accurately state what the purpose of the article, the why, and then leave out the most, and then include the most relevant information and leave out opinion and detail. So let's look at the first one. Ultimately, Colvin presents this information so that people can finally know how people achieve greatness and to show that anybody can be great with hard work. Now, first you might notice it's a little bit wordy. You could take that down a little bit and say, presents this information so that anyone can achieve greatness and go on to be successful with hard work. But the people can finally know how people is a little bit wordy. However, it does capture what the author wants you to do. He wants you to know deep in your bones after you read this that you can do anything that you want to if you're willing to put in the deliberate practice. So this would be a 4. The next one. Ultimately, Colvin presents this information so that experts understand an enormous amount about the behavior that produces great performance. They understand very little about where that behavior comes from. Now again, if you know the article like I do, you know that this is a sentence directly out of the article, word for word, without using quotation marks. And unfortunately, it also is not an answer to this question. So this one would be a 1, and I hate giving 1s, but this would be a 1 because it is plagiarism. And then finally, ultimately, Colvin presents this information to inspire people to be great and gives them the information they need to do so. Now this is interesting because it actually does give the purpose. It is supposed to inspire you, and it is supposed to tell you that you can be great and here's how you do it. But it doesn't say the information they need to do so. It doesn't say, give them the information that through deliberate practice, you can achieve greatness. So this is going to be a 3 because again, it doesn't include the most important details. There are 3 more parts to the rubric that are not addressed in those 6 sentences that I just want to make you aware of. One is focus. This one, if you keep on task all the way through there and don't add anything extra or any personal opinions, you should be able to get a 4 in focus. So this is just, did you answer all the questions in the blanks and did you make sure not to leave anything out? The next one is about language. This one is about how well you wrote it. So remember in some of them I said, oh, there's a couple of words here and there that make it so it's a little bit less readable. That's what this one is. So if you get a 3, this is actually one of the harder ones to fix because spotting your own problems when you write is a little bit more difficult. And it's why I encourage you to read things out loud because often you can catch that. And it's even better if you have someone else read it out loud to you, or you read it out loud to someone and have them catch some of your mistakes. So this is about the language, the like editing. And finally, the emphasized mechanics. This is, did you always capital Colvin's last name? See, Colvin, so it looks like this. Did you always capitalize his first name? Did you always capitalize the names like Michael Jordan? So any name, do they have the right capital letters? Is the title of the article capitalized the same way it is on the article itself? Did you capitalize the F in Fortune, the M in Magazine? Did you capitalize the O in October? Is the title of the article in quotation marks and anything that you used from his article in quotation marks? And then is the magazine, this is the last one, the magazine is in italics. That one, I'm not going to knock you down a full point if you did everything else. Really what I was looking for was, did you do the capitals correctly? Because that is what you've done in Quill, and so I'm holding you responsible for the things that you have learned in this course. So if you make 1 mistake, it probably puts you in the 3 range. If you make 4 or 5 mistakes, it puts you in the 2 range. And if it's just littered with mistakes, like if you don't get 1 capital correct, it puts you down here in the 1. So I wanted to show you what it looks like when you put it all together. So this is the entire summary number 1. Again, this is in the A range. I believe it's got like a 38 or 39 out of 40. So you can see it's all together as 1 paragraph. A lot of you filled in the sentence frames, but didn't make it look like a paragraph, and it needs to look like a paragraph. So here's summary 2. Again, this is in the C range. So you can see again, it looks like a paragraph. And finally, this is in the B range. What you might notice right away is that it's a little bit shorter even than the A or the B, or the A or the C. And that's okay. Some people write in a more concise or shortened way, and that's fine. But you're really, again, looking towards doing everything you're supposed to in every sentence. This one ultimately ends up being a little bit short, and it needs a little more detail in some of the sentences to move it up into the A range. So to make this a little bit easier for you, I'm going to give you this sentence frame in Classroom. And this one allows you to just double click on the blank and replace it with what's supposed to be there. Now you still have to look back at the sentence frames to know what goes there, but this one will at least let you build your paragraph so that it looks like a paragraph instead of building them in the sentence frames and having all those weird lines underneath. So this is supposed to help you so that when you write it all together, especially when you go back and revise it. Some of you are starting from nothing. You're using what I taught you today in the video and in the live class periods to go back and fix this entirely. If that's you, use this. Fill in these blanks and just write it over. When you have it done, the easiest thing for you to do is to send me an email with this in the email. That way I can see it right away and I can go back and give you credit for it. You can also put it back in your activity 15 or 13 documents and send me an email and say it is in my activity 13 document. But the easiest way to get a new grade on this is to complete this, paste it into an email, and send it to me, and I will regrade it for you. So if you still have questions, if you're still struggling with this, if you've gone back over this video a couple of times and you're still like, I don't know what to do and I've tried, then come to me with some specific questions. So instead of, I have no idea what to do, start with, I'm stuck on getting sentence 1. Can you help me get sentence 1 complete? Or, I don't know what Colvin's point is. Can you talk me through that? Or, I'm trying to do this and put it in my own words, and I'm struggling to put it in my own words. Can you help me? Those kinds of questions show me that you've already tried, and it helps me know where to start, instead of just, I don't know what to do. That tells me either I wasn't paying attention, or I don't even know what I don't know, and I want you just to explain it to me all over again. And that is less helpful than saying, here is what I'm stuck on. Can you please help me? So thank you guys, and good luck on this. Enjoy your weekend, and I will see you on Monday.